week's episode of Show Me How It's Done. This is our 50th episode. I can't believe it. And I'm so excited to start the Christmas season off with you guys today. So if you have not tuned in before, this is my weekly video. My name is Lauren Bonus with Lauren Scraplot, and you can shop online at laurenurbonus.stampinup.net if you are in Canada. Now, I don't know about you guys, but these chocolate caramel hazelnut treats are a staple in my house during the holidays. I grew up with them, and I just can't remember a time where I wasn't sneaking open the little package, if I can get it out, and grabbing one of these goodies. So what I wanted to show you today is the project that ties together some of the bundles I've been using lately and gives you a nice little treat wrapper for one of these boxes. So you'll have to watch out because there are different sizes out there, but you're looking for the 12-piece ones, the 100-gram ones. They're the most common. So in Walmart, Superstore, all of those, these are the sizes I usually see. And so I wanted to show you how to make a really cute sleeve for a set of chocolates. So the good thing about this is you can easily empty this out, eat all these chocolates, and then you can go back and rebuy a set when you're actually ready to give this away, because this little guy, it holds its shape, doesn't actually need the box to stay alive. So I want to show you how to make this little treat today, and I'm going to be featuring a few different bundles, mostly because I just finished holding a all-day retreat on Saturday that highlighted the Christmas to Remember bundle, Christmas season, and the Peaceful Cabin. So this was kind of a fun project that actually has elements from all three of the projects here. So I'm just going to briefly show you where things are from. So this paper in the background, that would be featuring from the Peaceful Cabin suite. I've used the Designer Series paper, and that is the Peaceful Place DSP up here. And for our little trees, we've also used some of these little guys here with the silver foil. So that's using the Peaceful Cabin dies. While I'm on the subject of the silver foil, this guy can be tricky to find now because we actually don't have packages just of silver foil anymore. But if you look in the holiday catalog on page 23, there is silver foil in 3 different shades. So I've used the lightest one here, but then there's also 2 really beautiful, like brushed and a matte look. And then this would be the mirrored foil finish. So it's a really great set. So you have all sorts of pieces to use, but that's hiding in the holiday catalog if you're trying to find the silver foil anywhere. Next would be this tag here. So this black outline of a tag, I've grabbed it from the Christmas season dies. So this guy right here, it's kind of the second largest of them right there. I just cut that out with basic black cardstock, and then we didn't use the stamp at all. For the sentiment, this is where the Christmas to Remember stamp comes in, and you can see I've used this Joy and Love one. I did end up doing some embossing with that, and I'm not going to do that on camera today because it's super loud. I haven't pre-prepped for you, but I just wanted to show you the basics of how all my materials came together. So let's teach you how to make this adorable little box. What you will need to start, and if you ever want to do this from scratch, all I did was I stole the Toffifee wrapper, and then I sat down with a ruler and figured out exactly how big it was and where to put score lines. So without you having to do that, let me give you those measurements right now. So I have used a piece of basic gray cardstock. You could use Smoky Slate or gray granite if you're trying to keep in this theme, but this one is basic gray. It's nice and dark. So it measures 6 7/8 by 10 3/4. I will put all those measurements in the comments on the YouTube video here, so don't worry about writing them down if you're just watching this for the first time. So we need to do 4 score marks. The first one is going at 5/8, 1 1/2, 5 3/4, and 6 5/8. Okay, so those are going to be 4 lines that you need to put in there. 5/8, 1 1/2, 5 3/4, 6 5/8. And then you'll want to grab your bone folder, or if you have a really sharp nail, make nice crisp lines on all 4 of those so that you're kind of putting them all together, making a box like so. On this last one, I like to kind of work it up first and then bend it over, just because it is a little bit more delicate. There we go. Now, what I really like doing with my boxes, and this is just so I don't have some weird corners sticking out, is on this skinny little strip that's facing towards me, I'm just going to cut off the tiniest little triangle on each side. And that is just going to help me in case I haven't cut my papers exactly straight. When I'm doing some overlapping, you're not going to notice it. And kudos to Toffifee, they did that on their boxes. So good job. They know how to build a box. So let's build this box because it's super easy. So your box would nicely line up together, which means we want a little bit of adhesive just on this little panel that's getting tucked underneath. Okay, so I'm going to just put some tape on there, nice and quick so you can see it. Get that off. And there we go. The nice thing is, so if you're a little unsure about building a box, if you just kind of lay this piece down like so, if you lay this one now down on top of it, even if there's a little gap, your box will be squared off for you. So that's a little trick. Instead of trying to line everything up, just fold that one edge over and add the other side to it, and that will give you a nice squared away box. So whatever side you've done your little work on, you want that to be the back. Okay, we don't want people to see it. So this is going to be the front of my box. And I'm going to do a little bit of decorating on here. So what I can start with is my piece of basic black cardstock. And I liked that just for a little bit of a frame. So I've cut this guy at 4 inches by 6 1/2. And I'm going to pop him up on dimensionals because I love how that looks. And if you do have the Toffifee candies handy, this is maybe a good time to just pop them in here, make sure they fit for you, and it gives you a little bit sturdier of a platform to be working on too. Okay, so let's put some dimensionals on our basic black. And it's covering a lot of distance, so give a couple in the middle there. And this is going just right in the middle of my box. You will notice you have more space on the left and right than you do on the top and bottom. And I did that on purpose because when I'm cutting designer series paper, I want to make sure to get as much out of my pack as possible. So my designer paper was cut 6 inches long. And sorry, did I tell you the black piece is 6 inches? This is 6 1/4. Okay, so my designer paper is 6 inches long, which means I can have 2 side by side from my piece of paper, and then 3 3/4 is going to be the width. So that means that I got 6 of these out of 1 piece of paper, as opposed to the fact that if I had just gone over that extra 1/4 inch, I would only be able to get 3. So I've doubled my size, and nobody's going to notice that you've got these little extra gray pieces hanging out. So don't worry about that. Don't attach this guy yet because I want to show you something that you could do for fun. And that is just adding a little bit of color to your DSP. So here I have done only one accent point. I've picked one little cabin that I wanted to focus on, and I've left the rest in the colors that Stampin' Up! Printed the paper in. So if you want to follow along, I'm going to give you the names of the colors that I used, but you could certainly use something else from your collection too. So for my chimney, and you'll see my paper, this one is cut quite differently. It's actually a different cabin. So I only have a tiny little chimney here to work with, as opposed to this large one on the side, where I definitely wanted a dark and a light color so that I could shade those bricks. This way, I'm probably only gonna just use one of my Smoky Slate blends. I'm just gonna add the slightest bit of color up here where that chimney is. And if you really wanted to, you can throw in a little accent, but you probably can't see it that well. Okay, so Smoky Slate, you can also use gray granite. That would look beautiful as well. Now for my cabin, I layered a bunch of colors here because I really wanted some different wood tones. So what I started with was my cinnamon cider blends. Okay, so those were kind of my standard. I thought, okay, I will start with the dark. Everywhere that Stampin' Up! Has kind of added that dark look, I'm just gonna messy color right in there. You don't need to make this perfect. It's just to add a little bit of shadowing, similar to what Stampin' Up! Has already shown us. Then I am going to come over top with my light cinnamon cider blend, and I'm actually going to color in all of those cabin details, including on this cabin, the fact that there is a beautiful porch. Okay, so try not to get the poles. That's where we're going to bring our bronze marker in, but don't worry if you do get it a little bit. Okay, so coloring in all this area, just tilt that. And you'll really see the colors start to come alive as you play with the different tones. So you'll see what this looks like just using this shade and the stamp underneath it. But when you start building the browns together, it brings it even more to life for you. Okay. So here's my cinnamon cider. It's great. I haven't colored the window yet because that's where I'm going to bring my bronze marker in. Because it's a little darker. I'm going to do that window frame. I'm going to do these poles. I'm going to do the porch poles on this one. This one has a little bit more detail than the one I just did. And you can even go over some of those dark spots with this dark brown. Now, if you have it, and as you can see, this is beautiful, but if you have the dark crumb cake marker, it looks even better if you can now go over top of everything, including those frames, including the poles, with this dark crumb cake. You will barely notice it, but by going over top, it's just rich. It's rich and it brings out some of the tones of the color under it. I kind of did it by accident the first time and then I loved it. So we're just going to go with it because I found it really brought my project to life. I went over everything I had colored in a different brown. With that color on top, it just made it super, super rich. Okay, so like I said though, if all you own is the one bronze marker, it will still look gorgeous. Coloring over that cabin, it already has a lot of detail, so you won't need to worry about adding a ton to it. And I guess this window could be colored a little. There you go. But it just kind of brings your project to life a little bit more if you have multiple browns at different stages. Okay, now to pull in some tree coloring. Again, I don't want to color everywhere on this project, so I still just want to pick like a few feature trees. So I'm going to pick the ones surrounding this cabin, and that's what I'm going to focus on here. I have chosen to pull out my dark evening evergreen and my light soft succulent so that I get the really dark branches of an evergreen tree and then a really soft way of showing the rest of the tree so that still some of that black shone through. If you own shaded spruce blends, if you own old olive blends, these are also going to be perfect tree colors. The only reason I chose these two is because they tied in with the cards that I was showing everyone this weekend. So I wanted to keep that going for them. Okay, so I'm going to take my dark evening evergreen and I'm just going to go down my tree in those little shaded spots that Stampin' Up! Has kind of the snow drifts on. Does not have to be pretty. You're just adding that little dark palette. Okay, so just go back and forth, kind of how a tree would be, all up and down. Now, with your light soft succulent, you're going to go over that whole tree branch. So starting from the top, we're just shading down the left side. And then, you know, when you were a kid and you drew those just cheesy trees, go over top of any of the black you see and just make kind of a faded branch look. On the left and the right. I am not a good colorer, and so I like just messy blending here. My colors are going to bleed into each other over time, and it's going to give me just a really subtle look for my tree. From a distance, will look like I colored it perfectly. Okay, so here's my cute little trees. Now, here's one marker that I often forget to use. This is my stamping chalk marker. What I decided to do was just add a few dots of snow to my tree. It kind of makes the branches come alive a little bit. If you don't own this marker, that is okay. You can certainly just leave your trees without it, but it makes it really wintry. The other thing you can do with this chalk marker now is go over the snow on the one cabin that you're featuring. You won't really be able to see this on my picture, but up close, it makes your white on the cabin look different than the white surrounding it. So it will help this singular cabin that you've picked out actually look a little different. And I did go across the bottom, just kind of on this little snowdrift. So it's very, very subtle, but if you're right up close to it, it does help this white on this cabin pop out. Okay, so we have this beautifully colored. Let's go ahead and attach it to our box. I'm just using some sort of flat adhesive with this. Your blends do color through sometimes, so maybe color on a scrap. Got lots of fun patterns to pick from here. There's also a paper with just trees on it. So if you don't want cabin look, you can also just have like woodland trees and pick one block of them to color. That would be nice. Here we go. There's my little focal cabin. So I'm going to take my sentiment that I already have ready to go. So I mentioned I embossed this with silver embossing powder on that little label. I'm going to pop him up on dimensionals. And then I just wanted to add one more thing to the project. So I did pull in some trees from the Peaceful Cabin suite. So I have the tallest one and then one of the short ones. They're about the same, so it doesn't matter which one you pop out. But we're going to put a little bit of adhesive just on the side of this tag, and that's what you're attaching the large tree to. You can use a glue dot or something like that, but just the large tree gets attached right there. And then your little tree, you will put a dimensional on top of so that it is the same height as the tag underneath. So it should fit right near the bottom and right in the middle, right there. Okay. So there we go. And tuck him. Oh, I guess the bottom actually needs to cross over. There we go. Tuck him right beside there. I didn't line the bottoms up because I actually thought it looked nicer having this one just slightly elevated. So there you go. A couple differences in my boxes just between the cut of the paper, but otherwise they're very similar, and hopefully you can see the idea of just picking one focal point and making a little box, and it's just a fun way for you to pass out a treat. You end up not needing to keep this wrapper because you don't need it for anything, but it makes a great scrap. You know, if you're stamping on something, it's nice and thick. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's project, and I hope you check out some of my other videos also featuring this bundle. I had one last week, and I'll have one coming up in November again too. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye!